Well, good evening and welcome to the LBJ Grasslands outside of Decatur, Texas. Tonight's exercise is a detailed field evaluation of the PowerTac Warrior G4-FL. This is the 4200 lumen flood. I like to do these evaluations in the context of a wilderness search and rescue training exercise. So we're going to run through a scenario tonight that is similar to what I would give a student. This is a solvable scenario, and so I'm just going to skip all the introductions and get right to it. We are exiting TADRA, which stands for Texas Arabian Distance Racing Association. This is a campground that also serves as the trailhead for all the named trails here at the Grasslands. Now, we showed up here just for a night of camping, and as it happens, law enforcement was out here. They had been called in. There was a lady, her name is Amy. She and her two friends were out here. They were supposed to camp overnight and then go horseback riding the following day. Well, the two friends are very adventurous, avid backpackers, and so they decided, they had this map and they noticed Cottonwood Lake. They said, hey, let's go up to Cottonwood Lake. That looks like it would be a fantastic hike. They thought they had plenty of daylight. They said that they would be back before sunset. Well, obviously it is after sunset. So our job is, law enforcement is going to head up to Cottonwood Lake and search around that area with their vehicle searchlights. Our job is to see if we can pick up any sign or find the two ladies in the event that they either changed their mind on the way out, got in trouble, or something else happened to them on the way back. Now, in search and rescue, one of the first acronyms you learn is SMEAC, which stands for Situation, Mission, Execution, Administration, Communication. So situation and mission drive execution, and the question of how am I going to execute my missions determines what I put in my loadout. So when it comes to lighting systems for wilderness applications in particular, I tend to gravitate towards lighter, smaller form factors. So that's what we're looking at the PowerTac G4 for tonight. Let's say we have all the information we need to get started on the search. We have physical descriptions of the two backpackers. We have all the relevant information, communications set up with law enforcement. So we know that they started along this path. Amy saw her two friends going along this path headed north out of TADRA. So if they're headed up to Cottonwood Lake, that means they needed to pick up the red trail. So we're going to head out on the red trail and see if we can pick up any relative sign. In the meantime, I'll show you a quick look at the Warrior G4 in turbo mode. This is mounted on the right shoulder of my ruck. I tend to like to pair a wider beam flood with a narrower long throw spot. Although at first glance, I think you'll see this actually gives you a fairly good balance between the two. And it'll also show you why I tend to go with lights that are smaller and lighter, just because from the standpoint of line of sight, we don't often have that much visibility. In fact, for most of the exercise tonight, we're probably going to have no more than 100 to 150 yards line of sight. So let's head out north here till we get to the periphery of TADRA, then I'll check back in. All right, here we are at the periphery of TADRA. Now, one of the things that we've been doing on the way out is looking for sign, footprints that would indicate that our two hikers potentially came in this direction. Now, one of the things you have to be cognizant of is think of it like that there's a clock ticking. Okay, as soon as that sun goes down, it gets very cold out here. If our hikers were out during the day, they were probably dressed during the day. As soon as that sun goes down over the horizon, hypothermia starts to come into play. If they're lost and wandering around, if they're hurt and laying somewhere, they're probably not prepared for temperatures tonight. So we can't spend all of our time doing CSI forensic tracking. We have to be cognizant of that clock. And right now, it's been over 25 minutes since sunset. Think of it, every 30 minutes, that clock ticks down, survivability ticks down. Now, the good news is we have a very ample supply of loose dirt here, and for purposes of this scenario, we were able to pick up the prints of one of the hikers. We got a very full set of what appear to be women's size hiking shoes, left and right, and we have a partial print of another. So now we have pictures of the tread, we have ideas of the size of the tread. So we have fairly high confidence that they did go this direction and try to pick up the red trail. And so we're going to go out here continually following the red trail unless we have sign otherwise, and we'll take that all the way out to Cottonwood Lake. But again, keep in mind that you have to balance the idea. We want to look for sign, we want to look for clues, but we don't want to be so thorough that we tick away the survivability of the people that we're looking for. So that's the balance that we're going to have to try and maintain all night. So at this point, high confidence they headed this direction towards the lake. I'm going to use the Warrior G4 to get a good look downrange. Notice I have more than enough downrange visibility, but this is excellent for situational awareness because not only can I see the trail, I can see what's to the right and the left of the trail very easily. And while there is often sign on trails, there are going to be a lot of important clues that are just off trail, maybe 10 or 15 yards. So having that peripheral visibility is important. So our clock has ticked down to over 32 minutes. We have some very nice soft dirt here, and as you can see, we've got a split in the trail. Now the red trail actually goes off to the right, and this is one of the confusing things about the grasslands, is that this is not hiking territory, this is horse territory. And remember, TADRA stands for Texas Arabian Distance Racing Association. So the idea is for horse riders to come out here and practice their navigation skills. The tracks that I've been following actually lead off here to the left. This is the inbound of the orange, yellow, and blue, as well as the outbound of the orange. Strictly speaking, if they were going out to Cottonwood Lake, they should have gone right, but the sign indicates that they've gone left. Now, this is not a bad mistake, as I'll show you in our next stop, but the sign is pointing in this direction, so that's the direction we're going to go. And again, you're looking at the Warrior in turbo mode. Okay, this is where it helps to have some local knowledge. It kind of looks like we're in the middle of nowhere. Well, as it happens, the path you see right in front of me that leads down here, first of all, there's 0 tracks, and there's enough soft dirt that my belief is that no one went this way. This is the inbound for the yellow and blue. The orange goes off in this direction, and you can actually head into the trees there. Now, if you want to see what all of that looks like, go to my video collection and look for the Petzl Swift RL review, and you'll find out exactly what all that territory looks like. But again, you know, we're out kind of in fairly open territory, but look how much growth we have. I mean, this stuff is really tall. And honestly, if we were out here in the summer, it would be even worse. Now, as it happens, you may not see, although it's much easier with the Warrior, there's a tiny hint of a path in this direction. And if we go up here barely 15 or 20 yards, we're going to connect with where the red trail crosses. Now, from a tracking perspective, what I would look for is there any sign that any of this tall grass has been bent or broken? Now, we generally don't have time to go through a full explanation of how you would determine that. This is something I would go over with a student, and we don't want to spend much time on it because the clock is ticking, right? We're at about 39, 40 minutes since sundown. And so that survivability clock is ticking down. So what I'm going to do is, even though it seems like there's no trail there, I'm going to pick up the red trail and then head back in this direction more north and then work my way up. I don't know if you see the comm towers in the distance. That's essentially our ultimate destination. We're going to head north and then work our way back east up to Cottonwood Lake. All right, this is the point of an intersection. Our survivability clock just hit 55 minutes since sunset. If you had gone through that path through the trees that I talked about, hard to believe, but you would have come out right in here. Really have to work your way through a lot of growth. This is the direction that we came from. There is some soft dirt, some sand, but it's not leaving good tracks. I mean, I can barely see my own boot print. I mean, part of the problem with tracking at night is getting the light at the right angle. Sometimes you even have to use two lights in order to get enough contrast to make out the tread. It's just gotten to the point that it's almost not worth the effort, and you have to look for other ground spoor or indications. There is another path that leads off in this direction. Again, I can't see any type of sign, any type of disturbance that they went this direction. Now, it is possible. I've got to go up to Cottonwood Lake and finish my examination there. But once I hook up with law enforcement, if we still haven't found them, I'm probably going to take this path because they may have come back, gotten confused. They might remember they have to make a bit of a left turn to get back, but they needed to go on this path, and it will naturally take them back southish towards Tadra. They may have, in fact, accidentally turned in this direction. So I'm going to stick with the mission, stick with the plan, take the red trail in this direction, work my way up towards Cottonwood, liaise with law enforcement. In fact, I've got my first check-in due in a few minutes. Now we're headed off into the trees. I may put the Warrior G4 in a lower mode. I'm going to temporarily leave it in turbo, and let's get started. So we're at about 1 hour and 8. I just wanted to show you this little turnout. We're at the edge of Cottonwood Lake. And so this gives you a real good look at what the Warrior can do. Check that out. I have very good peripheral visibility, but getting a good view of the opposite edge of the lake, I mean, I'm completely hands-free. I'm just turning my body. Very, very easy search. And you can see so far we've been out not quite 1 hour and a half, and it's hard to find anywhere where I have even 100 yards or so line of sight. Now we are getting there. When we get to the other edge of Cottonwood Lake, we're going to have some areas to look at that are over 320 meters line of sight, but we're not there yet. Clearly there's no indication that anything happened here. I mean, even if they came down here to, take a photo of some wildlife or something, I mean, there's no indication of any disturbance whatsoever at the edge. And honestly, you can see this is so shallow that even if someone fell in, the worst thing that's going to happen to them is they're going to get wet and muddy. We are at 1 hour 21. This is a turnout. That's the direction we were heading. We have this turnout right here. The ground's too hard to see if there's any indication somebody went along this path. So what I would do is just quickly, I happen to know this takes you right to the edge of the lake, it would be a great place to go, you know, to the edge of the lake and take a picture or something. So I went out there and back, absolutely nothing, but it did need to be checked. At this point, we're going to continue in this direction. We're actually getting fairly close to intersecting with the road that in this area runs roughly north-south through the grasslands. Okay, well, here we are at the eastern edge of Cottonwood Lake. We're not down to the edge of the lake. We're up fairly near to the road. You can probably see the edge of the road right there. Now, I've switched the lights to put the PowerTac on my left shoulder. I have a mount that I can use for a second headlamp or a GoPro that's on the right side. I know we've been getting some shadow from that. Now, on the one hand, I think the rest of the evening will be good because the wind has calmed down to nothing. And so the particulates will die out of the air, and I think we'll get a more realistic view of what the light really looks like. Unfortunately, we just had a huge truck drive by. So if I show you the light right now, all you can see is reflection of all the dust that's still in the air, and the truck drove by 5 minutes ago. But I think this will give you a better view of the wide range of the light. This is what I want, is, you know, you can see that it has a hot spot, but has a very, very wide field of view. So this gives me exceptional situational awareness side to side. And again, I can bring my longer throw spot into play if I need illumination beyond that. So we're going to make our way down to the edge of the lake here. We are now at 1 hour and 32 minutes, and I mean, if we haven't gotten any sign now, the officer drove up and down the road up here with the searchlight and did not see anything. So we're going to go down to the edge of the lake and do a much more targeted search. And again, I apologize for all the dust that's in the air. It's really taking away from the view of the lamp, but if I stand here for another 30 minutes, it still won't all be gone. So this is what we have to deal with. Well, here we are at 1 hour 36, and I'm right down at the edge of the lake. You may notice a bit of a blue hue off to my left. I put the blue filter onto the PowerTac. Now, of course, it's taken quite a bit of the view away, but there are occasions where blue can be valuable for a underwater search. I still have too much particulate matter in the air, and there's too much gunk, so seeing underneath the water I don't think is that big of a deal. So I'm going to remove the blue filter, and now we have the full visibility of the light available. I don't know if you can see the tail lights over there in the camera, but that's over 320 meters. I mean, I can light up the lake, but I'm really not lighting up that vehicle. I mean, if that vehicle didn't have anything reflective on it at all, I probably couldn't see much of anything. So I'm going to bring my additional light in play and get as close to the edge as I can. We have some ducks out there, and I'm going to move down in this direction because I think I see something. And this is an area, of course, that would have been probably missed by the officer back up there on the road doing that searching. So we've got some ducks, but what I see is over here to this side of that little brush. So we're going to make our way down here. I've got both lights going, so I've also got visibility well off to my left side. And as we get over here, okay, for purposes of this scenario, and this is only a scenario, I would tell the student that this is where things end fairly tragically. We have two bodies over here floating face down. Now, there's absolutely zero sign along the way. This is so shallow, again, that if they fell in, now I do notice some depressions right over in here, and some, you can see right there what looks like may have been drag marks. So this is the scenario where I'm probably going to expect foul play. So this is where we would go through the entire situation of reporting our results back to law enforcement. You know, we have to treat everything along here as being a crime scene, have to be very careful where I step. If I see anything important, you know, I would want to drop a chem light there, but we're not CSIs, we're not supposed to be investigating things. So I'm going to make my way back up to the fence line, and then I'm going to do a summary. Let's get my spot off and take one look at the road area. That's with the PowerTac. But again, there's just, you know, with that truck coming by, I mean, there's still a massive amount of particulates in the air. So it's really hard to do the light justice right now. Hopefully, on the way back, we'll be able to get some better views. But again, I think you're able to see the wide range of illumination better without that interference from the mount on the right side of my helmet. Okay, so we finished up our report with law enforcement, and you might think that, well, the scenario is over, it's time to head back to the truck. Hopefully our student did well, but that's not the way it's working out tonight. Of course, since we found 2 bodies, there's now law enforcement everywhere, and the officer that we just finished up our report with has asked us to go in this direction. There's another officer that needs to talk to us at Little Cottonwood Lake, so we're headed over there. Let's take another quick look at the G4. I mean, that's a little bit better. The particulates have settled down. That's been my problem all night. There's just so much particulates in the air. You get a real glare coming off the hot spot, and it just makes the light look different than it does otherwise. So you're getting a little effect from my headlamp as well. But see, this is what I want from predominantly a flood, is I want that, you know, smooth, even illumination. We still have a bunch of junk in the air, so it's not a perfect view, but, you know, we have to work in imperfect conditions. But if you can just see, if all I'm doing is scanning this territory, of course, here comes another vehicle, just my luck. If I'm just scanning this territory, this is exactly what I want. And so let's go over to Little Cottonwood and see what that officer wanted. Okay, we're at the entrance road to Little Cottonwood Lake. The officer informed us that there was an Indian couple and their daughter, Sunitha, and they are camping overnight. Earlier in the evening, you know, they're getting dinner ready. This happens a lot with parents. They got into kind of a heated discussion. Sunitha is, you know, very aggressive into hiking and camping, exploring. You know, they thought she was off playing, and then by the time dinner was ready, they could not find her. So the clock now is starting at almost 2 hours, about 1 hour and 57 since sundown. This is one of those difficult cases where the parents can't agree on what the girl was wearing, and so we would do things like ask what her favorite colors are. You know, when she goes out in the outdoors like this, does she wear camo? Does she wear bright colors? In this case, we've been informed she wears bright colors. I'm going to fast forward through a lot of details here. Our particular mission is law enforcement is going to do a very targeted search around the lake. She's been missing now for a fairly long period of time, probably well over 2 hours. So we got to really hurry on this one. They're also going to look up and down the main road, which is back here, and go interview people at the various campgrounds and so forth. There's one area here that isn't covered, which is our responsibility, and that is that there is a segment of the red trail that we can pick up in this direction, and it goes off roughly southward. So It is possible. That's great scenery. You can get some views of the lake from the trees. It's possible she went in that direction, but that's the one area that law enforcement does have covered. So we're going to head down in this direction. It's pretty much right over here, pick up the red trail and then head southward. Okay, so we've picked up the red trail. We're heading out. Now that the particulates have settled down, we don't quite get the indication of a hot spot we had before. I think we get a much better indication of what the light looks like here on my left shoulder. Now, there is one detail. I left out a ton of details because they're not germane to the light evaluation, but there is a couple things that I really want to leave that camp with. If possible, a print. Now, I wasn't able to get one because of mostly dirt road and hard surfaces. The other thing I want to walk away with is, as we click up past the 2-hour mark, is I want to have a selfie with me and the parents, as well as a description of something that they love to do together as a family. Now that may sound narcissistic, even borderline insane, but there is a methodology to that madness, so keep that in mind because it will come in handy later on in the scenario. Okay, we are at 2:21, have been making pretty good time. The sign is almost non-existent. There's so much fallen leaves, even on the soft dirt. I still don't have any indication that Sunitha came this way, but this fork, the trail actually continues off in that direction. Now, you'll notice there is a path this way. That actually leads down to the lake, and horses will go down there, you know, get a drink, then come back up here. You can see just a bit of a cutoff across there, and then they'll pick the trail back up here. Now, in the event that Sunitha did come this direction, I need to go check that. You know, just look around the lake, see if there's any sign that she fell in. You know, this is the balance that we have to take between spending time versus moving forward. You know, if there's no indication down there, I might waste 5 minutes that would have been better spent going in this direction. But this is something that I do not want to leave unsearched, so I'm going to have to go take care of it. But I'll try to do it as quickly as possible. Well, we're just a couple minutes down the trail. Honestly, if I was going to find her, this is kind of where I'd expect to find her, especially if she left as the sun was setting. This is very, very slick, uneven. This is a mechanical injury just waiting to happen, but there's no indication that anybody came through here. There's nobody injured as we look down range. Nothing there. So only thing to do is move forward. Okay, we're at 2:26. I finally picked up a decent partial of what may be a 12-year-old girl's footprint. It's not much to go on, but it's the only encouragement I've had. Oh, finally the particulates are getting out of the air and they're not showing off that hot spot as much as before. So now we get a better idea of the more even display of the light. So as soon as I get, you know, any type of sign or footprint, I'm going to stop and very carefully search the surrounding area. People who get lost, disoriented, they do strange things. So what I'm looking for is, you know, any indication of, you know, something that may be laying out there in the ground. I could even bring a second headlamp into play here. That's an additional 25 lumens. It's probably not showing up on the camera, but I now have visibility well into the tree line across the road. So again, I'm just looking to pick up anything that might be indication that she just kind of walked out into one of these areas. This is the PowerTac HL10 headlamp, by the way. Okay, so I don't see anything, but remember, situation, mission, execution. You know, this has been a very discouraging search so far, and you have bouts of both discouragement and excitement in especially night search and rescue. You know, we're going to stick with our mission until we're called off. The administration here is law enforcement. They're the shot callers. That's incident command. And so all I can do is just keep moving forward. But I mean, this is the best display we've had of the light so far tonight. I mean, earlier when there was so much junk in the air, you know, it looked like you had a more, you could really see that hot spot like you have right there. Of course, it doesn't help that my headlamp is partially polluting the view, but that's part of the evaluation. Is all of these pieces of gear, you know, they have to work together. So, you know, you can see why I like this. I just have such a good view of not just what's ahead of me, but everything that's off to the side. Well, all I can do, keep moving forward. Okay, we are at 2 hours and 51 minutes. This is the direction that we just came from. This one ends on a fairly good note. So this little open area right here for this scenario, this is actually where we found Sunitha. This is where persistence and just sticking to the mission pays off. So first of all, what happened? Well, remember back in this direction as we're looking at the Warrior, we had that little fork where you could go off to the river. Well, she actually took that fork. She got down to the edge of the creek and realized she was at a dead end, but it was getting dark. So when she backtracked, this happens all the time. She got disoriented. She made the wrong turn. She turned left when she should have turned right. And so instead of heading back towards camp, she headed away from camp. Her problem was that she hasn't drunk anything for over 3 or 4 hours. And she's been out playing and, you know, using up a lot of energy. She's fairly well clothed, so she's got a pretty good coat on. Her problem is not hypothermia, it's dehydration. She just kept going until the dehydration reached the point that she just fell down here. Her mouth is so parched she can't even yell. And the horrible tragedy of it is, I don't know if you can see the taillights, the road is just right up there. And so this is a situation where, you know, things so far have worked out well. Now, you may think, well, the first thing we need to do is take care of physical first aid. And yes, that's true. We have to address the dehydration. But one of the things I like to point out, and we'll get some more views of the Warrior here as I talk, you need to think of the emotional and psychological state of the person in addition to their physical state. So right now, Sunitha has no cell phone. When she broke her cell phone when she fell, she can't yell out. It's dark. You know, every noise you hear, you know, that's the boogeyman or Bigfoot or, you know, something like that coming to get you. She's scared out of her mind. And here I come, and you know, I've got an iPhone mounted on the top of my helmet. I've got another light mounted out on the side. I've got these lights on my shoulders. I mean, I probably look like a space alien walking up to her. And so sometimes you're going to have issues gaining the trust and getting the person you find at ease. This is why I like to have that selfie that I took with the parents. Now, if I'm lucky enough, like right here, I've got cell phone reception. I can just let her talk to her parents. They've been instructed to, you know, be calming and reassuring and loving. And, you know, that goes a long way to calming her down and getting her into a state of mind that we can get her to emergency services. But if she doesn't trust me, she's freaking out, I need to make her comfortable, then one thing I can do is I've talked to the parents, you know, what do you guys like to do together? Well, she plays for the Bobcats soccer team, and we love to go out to the soccer games on Saturday. So I may say something like, hey, Sunitha, I know you're scared. I mean, when I get out here in the dark, I'm scared too. And you know what? I want to show you something. Here's a picture I took with your parents right before I left. They wanted you to know how much they love you, how much they wanted to see you again. And they said they can't wait to go out to another Bobcat soccer game with you and go out to Chili's and eat afterwards. And that immediately transitions her mind into something that's very happy and very enjoyable and engenders a sense of trust. So there we have it, two scenarios. We got a really good look at the Warrior here at the end. Thankfully, we don't have as much junk in the air as we did earlier in the night. This is one of those cases I wish I would have started maybe, 2 hours earlier. In any event, I'm going to head back to the truck, and then I will do my final wrap-off. We had one ended in tragedy, one ended good news. You know, since we're so close to the road, I've indicated to emergency services where we are. They're going to bring somebody here to pick up Sunitha. You know, we're going to get her hydrated, make sure she stays warm. And so one good, one bad. That's the way things work. I like to teach people that not everything is going to, work out great for you. You can do everything right, and sometimes things don't work out. That's just the nature of the business. So hopefully you got a really good view here, especially at the end of the Warrior G4. I'm going to head back to the truck and then do my final wrap up, and we are at 2 hours and 56 minutes. Okay, we are at 3 hours and 6 minutes. You can probably see the reflections of my truck right there. I'm going to take one last look at the Warrior. I'm going to turn that off. Excuse me, I'm going to turn that on. I'm turning my headlamp off. So part of the problem is that my headlamp has been interfering with the display all night. So there's what the Warrior G4 looks like in turbo just by itself. In terms of fit, finish, user interface, all those things, I have previous experience with PowerTac, so very reliable brand, excellent fit and finish. The UI in terms of changing the modes, I'm used to having all my controls on the tail cap. And so having that little button around the edge is a little bit cumbersome for me. It's going to take some additional work, particularly if I was working with gloves. And I don't know that that's, good, bad, or indifferent. I'm just used to having all the controls on the tail cap. Unfortunately, the more control you have on the tail cap, the more points of failure. And as you can see, all I do all night is I work the switch. I would probably leave this in turbo mode all the time. I really wouldn't be switching modes, hardly at all. This is just an outstanding flood. I like the display. I think we had a good evaluation tonight over 3 hours. Hopefully our hypothetical student did well. And as far as a 3-hour outing is concerned, I know what my instructor, who is non-active duty force recon, would say. He would say, Jim, that was a really good warm-up, which leads us to scenario number 3. 2 hunters left Tadra. Campground is right over here. They were bow hunting for deer, and they went this direction along this road west out of Tadra. They were supposed to be back before nightfall. They are now well over 3 hours overdue. I would start the clock at about 3 hours and 10 minutes. So our mission is to head out west along this road and see if we can pick up any sign.